nerderotic.com.
So this is how Doctor Who dies, in a puff of pretentious flatulence. I have been going about these reviews all wrong, talking about plots, characterizations, themes. These aren't even the priorities of the repurposers in charge of this show. In their own words, Doctor Who is now made to create conversations, and the only conversations around this show are the falling ratings and that abysmal Rotten Tomatoes audience score. But before I get started, if you like what I do here and you enjoy independent voices on YouTube like Bulls Trek and yours truly, please consider subscribing to our channels and liking and sharing the videos. That is the only way we can remain competitive against the giant corporations that YouTube has decided to prioritize on this platform. I welcome all the new subscribers and I thank you for your continued support. I'm mixing things up here. This is going to be more of a Rotten Tomatoes Doctor Who news video than a review, but I will go over the plot for a few minutes because that's about how much time Ed put into the plot of the show, where the agenda was clearly the priority. The same Ed Heim who wrote It Takes You Away from Series 11, which was about a bad father who abandons his blind daughter with Asperger's to go visit a fake wife in a fake dimension made by a real frog. And that Rotten Tomatoes score is abysmal. It was fluctuating between 5 and 8% during our live stream yesterday that I did with Starry Eyed Girl, who was great, and of course the outstanding Bulls Trek.
You can look at my videos because I was calling this back in 2017 as to what was going to happen, and you can go back. It still says publication date, and everybody said I was full of shit. The only thing that I missed is I didn't think it was going to be this bad.
That live stream will be linked in the description, where we do go over the plot in detail. Let's get that out of the way. It was clear all the budget was used up in Spyfall Part 1 and 2, where when the second part ended, Gallifrey had been destroyed by the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker's arch nemesis, the first Master played by a person of color, Sacha Dhawan. The plot of this episode is a complete mess, and it's just a vehicle to get us to the agenda. The first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker and her fam are transported to the Tranquility Spa, which is just a dome structure on a desolated planet called an orphan planet. This one's called Orphan 55. The first female Doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, tells us this happens quite frequently. Global warming, caused by a ruling elite class, destroys a planet, leading to mass migration and thermonuclear war. Then that elite class abandoned the survivors to die. Turns out all the poor people left behind on this planet evolved into apex predator monsters that look suspiciously like a repurposed monster from Love and Monsters. Our cast of characters is the obligatory dumb father Nevi and his smarter son Silas, an elderly couple who has been together for 46 years and never bothered to get married because marriage is stupid. And to keep things fair, we have a bad mother, which is a serious overreach in feminist messaging, showing evil girl boss as a capitalist. At least Ed Heim is trying to keep it fair. The last Doctor Who episode he wrote was about a bad father, and this one is about a bad mother, telling us that Ed Heim still needs therapy. The cast is rounded out by Kane's rebellious daughter, who she doesn't recognize, Belle, who wants to destroy the Tranquility Spa because she was abandoned by capitalism. Turns out Orphan 55 is Earth, and they find this out by going into a tunnel and realizing that they're in Siberia, Russia. In a twist that surprised no one, the monsters that look suspiciously like repurposed monsters from Love and Monsters are us. They're people. And they are called dregs, and considering the location, these are Russian dregs. The cast is dwindled down to a very affordable level within the first 5 minutes, and because they spent all of their money on Spyfall Part 1 and 2, the rest of the episode is just being lectured to by the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker and running around the same repurposed corridor, leading us to one of those famous Doctor speeches. And while every single Doctor in the history of this show has one, this, unfortunately, will be the one the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker will be known for. You want me to tell you Earth's gonna be okay? 'Cause it can't. In your time, humanity's busy arguing over the washing up while the house burns down. Unless people face facts and change, catastrophe is coming. Then she tells us to be better and step up. People can save planets or wreck them. That's the choice. Or turn into Russians. I feel like I have been educated. I know more about the environment today than I did yesterday because Jodie Whittaker told me to be better. She told me to be better. Starry-eyed girl in Bulls Trek.
I know.
Welcome,
Hi.
everybody.
Let me
Hello.
begin by saying, what the did I just watch?
Believe me, folks, that only covered half of it, but I did not want to watch this entire episode again. And I'm not sure how much longer I can review every single episode, but I can weekly go over the ratings and the Rotten Tomatoes score. As with Disney Star Wars, as with Kurtzman Trek, Doctor Who is facing the consequences of prioritizing their agenda, political correctness, whatever you want to call it, over good storytelling, over giving fans what they want, giving fans what they need, entertainment. Instead, we need to be educated by our betters at the BBC. Now, we know there's been shenanigans going on with Rotten Tomatoes. There's definitely something going on with Star Wars where the audience score has been stuck at 86%. Probably do a video on that later. But with Doctor Who Series 11, we've also had it stuck at 21%. So a couple of days ago, they decided to reset the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for Doctor Who Season 12. And now we have this. And in your rush to be relevant, you end up looking tired and old. The critics didn't even like this episode. The people who don't like yours truly and Bulls Trek on Reddit didn't like this episode. And clearly, the fans didn't like this episode. And when you just go hard for agenda and that wears off, and the ideologues who you were making this show for end up getting bored by it because the actual stories suck, this is what you're left with. And this is what I've been warning you about for years. And this is what everybody else has been warning you. We are the hardcore fans. We are the ones that help you get through the dark times, and you piss us off. You risk offending people who will hold a grudge for life. And after sitting through this episode and watching something that was actually worse than arachnids in the UK, it's time to put this show down. It is time to cancel Doctor Who. I am completely okay with that because it's clear this show won't be able to turn around in time. We are not that far away from the 60th anniversary, and I just don't think it's going to make it that long. Now, let's get to the audience. And Jason M. echoes what I just said. Half star, this show should be put out of its misery. Half star from Brian F. When's the next Doctor? Downhill from here. It's a preachy, cheap copy of The More You Know. Star Trek tackled social issues, but this seems so plastic. Interestingly enough, that will be one of the villains this season, but it won't be the Autons. Half star from James H. Doctor Who, since Chibnall took over, has been absolutely terrible. Season 11 was the worst season ever, including the old seasons. Season 12 isn't turning out to be any better. My favorite sci-fi series of all time, and it's complete rubbish currently. Please find someone actually creative and not a repurposer to run the show for season 13. Please. We were asking for that all last season, and you know what the BBC's response was? Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall are coming back for another season of Doctor Who, and it's going to be the 13th season. We'll see how far the ratings drop in that one. Half star, Johnny L. I really wanted to give this season a chance, but after 3 episodes, it has only gotten worse. Actors are not bad. No, actually, they are atrocious, except for Graham, and he hasn't even been great this season. Storytelling aspect is garbage. We'll be waiting patiently for Doctor Who to get good again. Johnny, you're going to be waiting for a long, long time. I recommend Big Finish. Go back, watch those old series, read some of the old comics, read some of the old books. That's about as good as it's going to get. I don't think Doctor Who can recover from this. They have already lost the generation they gained just recently doing something Star Trek and Star Wars couldn't do. It owned Comic-Con in 2012. I know I sound like a broken record with that, but it was phenomenal to see, and it's also equally discouraging to watch this once great franchise fall. And the BBC doesn't have to change a thing because they can continue to extort the British population. 1 star. Oh my, if you thought the previous season was a train wreck, don't even bother watching the second one of this. You killed a great franchise with terrible writing and awful actors. Please just let it die with whatever dignity it actually has left, which is none. 1/2 star. David M. I hated last season. I thought that was as bad as it gets. 3 episodes into this season, and I've come to the conclusion that Doctor Who and I have to part ways. I'm finished. The writers and actors are horrible. Stephen M. 1 star. Last season was the most puerile, reductive, and just plain bad season of Who since it came back. This season is, so far, a bit better. I disagree, but it's raising the bar from appalling to just mediocre. Tough critic. So N. The gulf between this Doctor Who and the rest of the franchise mimics the differences between Troll 2 and Troll. The feel, the attitude, the writing, the depth, and even the names seem to be misplaced. It's as if someone had an idea for a children's sci-fi show that would not stand on its own, so they just overlaid it on the first property they could find that would remotely fit the bill. I agree with this. Doctor Who just happened to be the unlucky recipient of this honor. 1 star. The writing is horrible. Eric B. Simple, to the point, I like it. Jeffrey J. 1/2 star. After the disaster of season 11 and a long gap, I was hopeful that the show writers would have learned from their mistakes and returned to the classic roots of this venerable series. Instead, this season started off with a 2-part cheesy, stupid James Bond spy knockoff that was just horrible. At least the master was back, but he was a parody of the depth and complexity of that complex and classic villain. Then we saw an episode that, while a little silly in its initial premise, looked promising. It built well, then threw everything away by breaking the fourth wall and giving a heavy-handed moralizing lecture to the audience when subtlety would have been far more impactful and effective. It is a shame to see such a valued series fall this far. That review was written better than any episode in the Chibnall era. Charles R. for a 1/2 star. Honestly, I canceled cable because of this show. It was the last show I watched live. New Who with the first 3 new Doctors. But it is terrible now. It started to get bad with Capaldi and only got worse with the inane virtue signaling with this goofy doctor. At this point, the one good thing they had left, Michelle Gomez's Missy, is gone too. The silver lining is I'm saving over $65 a month. Everything else I watch is available through my streaming services. And you can also watch Nerdrotic on YouTube. Carrie R. 1 star. The fact that the showrunner doesn't listen to criticism is exactly why this season is tanking. Been a fan of this show since Tennant's era, and this is honestly such a shit season. Then there is the sinking ratings. While the drop wasn't as large as expected with Orphan 55, I'm going to show you that there's a huge one coming, and it usually follows an extra woke episode. Now we're talking about overnight ratings because all of the DVR and streaming ratings I call into question for absolutely everything because you need to really look into who gathers that data. As far as the Series 11 premiere compared to the Series 12 premiere, we know there was a massive over 50% drop on both sides of the pond. And we are now right back into Capaldi territory. The ratings are in for Orphan 55 and it got 4.19 million viewers. That is a decrease, although it wasn't as big as it's going to be next week. And in the US, the ratings are in and it's another over 20% drop. Of course, we know the Jodie bots and the Access Media out there love to bring up that first episode, which brought the average up for Series 11. But if you look at everything else, it trends way, way down. And yes, we were looking at the American ratings, and a lot more people watch it in the UK, but the percentages are identical as far as losing viewers. And if you look at the ratings after the fourth episode, which was Arachnids in the UK, it gets abysmal. It gets to Capaldi level ratings, and people were talking about canceling the show back then. Now, there's going to be all kinds of spin, but you can't spin this. Again, it's been a consistent downward trend since the first episode of Series 11, and it's going to get much, much worse. Plus, the licensing remains a problem. Yes, they were bailed out by HBO Max, but they paid for The Good Who. They can just stream that. They don't need any new Who beyond this. Unfortunately, we're going to get some, but they're not going to be able to sell any toys. They're not going to be able to sell any merchandise related to this Doctor. It just doesn't sell. It's gone from stores in America. There's no more Doctor Who sections in Hot Topics here. There's no more Doctor Who sections in Barnes & Noble, and we don't have that much retail here to begin with, thanks to Amazon. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is the 8th largest media market in the country, and I have looked. There's nothing anywhere. The only store I know of that has Doctor Who merchandise is my old comic shop, and it's the stuff left over from when I sold it almost 6 years ago. And then there are the critics and the ideologues in the Access Media. After sipping up their male tears, it looks like they didn't remain to watch the show. For example, Lucy Jones. I did a video on her, and you can check it out right here. She said she wasn't a fan before, but now she is because the Doctor has boobs. Let's check in and see if she has tweeted a single thing since she wrote this article for The Independent. From December 6, 2018, Doctor Who Backlash shows why it's time to bin the phrase politically correct. In this article, she says, until recently, Doctor Who did not appeal to me. Daleks and the TARDIS and the Time Lords sounded hummy and naff, and it all looked a bit amdram whenever I tuned in. I didn't get why adults were obsessed with the children's program, but then I heard that this latest series had pissed off Jeremy Clarkson, so it was time I had a closer look. I quickly learned that the current season, its 11th, included episodes about Rosa Parks, the partition of India, and witch trials. My interest was piqued. Already intrigued by the casting of the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker, I was told by a friend that queer characters and people of color were woven into the narrative in a radical, normalizing way, just like they had been doing for about a decade on the show, which would make a welcome difference to pretty much everything I have ever read and watched. So I decided to give it a go. What were you reading and watching, Lucy? Well, my name is Lucy, and I'm a Whovian. Let's check in on Lucy. And here we are at Lucy Jones' Twitter, and she's obviously changed her hair color, and it would have looked a lot better if she had gone to Mrs. Nerdrotic, but I digress. We go down her feed, and guess what? We don't see a single Doctor Who tweet. Not since she wrote her article, and I guarantee you the situation is the same with every single person who is drinking those male tears and taking their victory lap for taking something away from the patriarchy, and they just forgot about this show and went on to destroy something else. And now you've lost the critics. This episode got 58% from 12 critics, but that's the only ones who cared to review it. And we're going to end this on Starburst Magazine, the ones who originally reported that Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker would be leaving after Series 12. Ultimately then, while we want to commend Orphan 55 for attempting to take on the issue of climate change, it's a theme loosely tacked on to a wonky plot and an irritating set of characters, and a step down in quality for Series 12. 4 out of 10. I think they were being kind. I give this a none out of 10. I keep asking how much worse it can get, and it just keeps getting worse. After the fall of Skywalker, we are now going to see two more of our beloved franchises bite the dust. We are witnessing it with Doctor Who, and in about 10 days, we're going to witness it with Star Trek. They swung for the fences to bring back Sir Patrick Stewart, and they decided to go full woke on his behest. So that won't be entertaining to watch, and I know a lot of you out there are going to doubt me. I'll see you in a couple of months when that series is over, and we can watch Doctor Who and Star Trek fail concurrently. Until next time, everyone have a great day. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what you heard. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerderotic.com. Please subscribe.
Nameless.
Oh! Oh! Sorry, go on, Volstrek.
Oh God, this is getting even better.